Okay, we back with too much to type. So I'm gonna do some other videos, but I got delayed. Um, yeah, I got delayed, man. Uh, yeah, my dad died, and I was feeling all these unexpected emotions, right? Um, and I was like, oh, this would be cool to come holler at y'all about it to see. I've talked to a lot of people like throughout my life when one of their parents have died and both their parents have died. And it's always been like really specifically different from my situation. So, backstory, my pops died. We didn't have like a super close relationship or anything. And so usually when I'm talking to people about parental death, they're going through feelings of grieving from the POV of, you know, I miss them and they taught me so much. And, there's so much like relationship stuff that they're pulling from, and that's that, like if you had a decent relationship with your parents, that's kind of generally what I deduce, what I've been told, right? And me and my pops, we didn't have like a beef or anything like that. So it wasn't we was super close and locked in and he taught me all this stuff and like that father son thing. And then it also wasn't like, oh man, because you wasn't there, I hate you. Whoop-de-whoop. It wasn't that either, right? And so what I find fascinating is that what like I immediately felt when I got the call was like a cord being clipped. And I feel like I kind of envision it in this way, like you got two people that came together and created you. And then, life happens and then like snip. Like for me, one of them was gone, you know? And so I had all these weird like feelings that was really interesting from like a legacy perspective, right? Because I wasn't dealing with the like, oh, you missed him so much, like all of that stuff, but I was just feeling like uh immediately it felt like the world got a little colder, you know? And I was like, ooh, like I just felt like a chill, you know? It felt like, and I was saying this on my social media when I was letting people know about it. Um, it felt like something in my biology was recognizing that something almost like in this, like, yeah, biology and this DNA, that something was changed forever, you know? And it was very just like genetic, and I was wondering if anybody else, you know, out there experienced that and kind of had that just if you've experienced that. It was weird. It wasn't all these thoughts about, when's the last time we spoke or any of that. It was just like, it was very primal. That's what I'm trying to say. It was very like primal. It was like, some real Discovery Channel, Animal Planet type shit where it's just like, oh shit, like the one of the people responsible for me being here is now like gone off the face of the earth. And what does that make me now? You know? It's like, oh, and I was describing it like this. I was like, it's like the eldest lion of my tribe, you know, has taken that final journey, across the plain. And it's like, does that make me king now? Like I was just having all of these like really weird legacy thoughts. It was a little bit of the feeling like in Juice, my guy Mitch Marchland was the actor in Juice with Tupac, where he goes, "Now you got the juice." You know, it was just like this feeling of this baton being passed. You know, whether I chose to accept it or not, whether I agree with it or not, but I really felt that like intensely, you know, and I just found that to be like really fascinating. You know, we all deal with death differently. People deal obviously with the death of their parents differently. And just the only thing that I was, you know, those first kind of emotions and feelings was like just out in the wilderness and things just felt cold, you know? And it was just like I like in some sort of spiritual realm or sense, like it was just like this thing had happened and like my inner body like not even like an emotional thing, like my inner body just felt like, oh shit, this is I've just been changed forever, you know. And all I can relate it to is like, cause I watch a lot of Discovery Channel and nature and animal stuff. It just, that's all that was like kept coming to my mind. It's like this imagery of what happens when the oldest lion of a tribe dies and how that affects everybody of the pride. You know, like what was, you know what I mean? It was just like, man, I just thought like, oh, isn't that like some weird shit to feel when a parent dies? I don't know. I ain't never had it happen before, but nobody else has ever described it like that when I would talk to them. You know, um, yeah, it was always all these other emotions and stuff, which is you know, warranted. But for me, it was just like somewhat of an identity crisis, you know. And I thought that that was extremely fascinating considering me and my pops were not like super close, you know. But suddenly I was thinking about myself and in this way of like, oh, what do I do now? And legacy and carrying on a name and you know, so that was wild, man. That was a really interesting. You know, I got some homies who they lost they pops and it was more like, you know, one of my homies was telling me it was like, you know, he lost them when he was early on and he was saying, you know, so he was feeling like, oh man, there's so much game that I'm never going to get, so many life lessons. That's another thing, losing a parent like when you're in your 30s versus if you lose them when you're like 20s or teens. Like it's I don't know, it was just suddenly I felt like I just got initiated as one of my homegirls who's a comic as well, like into the Dead Dads Club that I ain't even know this existed. You know what I'm saying? Now I was like, oh shit, now I'm here. And I never I never imagined what I would feel like. You know, they always say like uh no parent wants to outlive their kid, you know. But I think it's interesting to think about like when you lose a parent, it's just like wild. It's just like the wildest thing. So it's been about 2 weeks now, you know, and so it's just like this different emotions, you know, and it's like I was gonna call this video because I was be talking about rap and shit like life after death, you know, a nod to Biggie, and I was like, but then I was just thinking about like death after life. That's another thing, right? You start thinking about your own mortality, you know, and I started thinking about like, damn, what am I gonna leave behind when I go, you know? If I at some point have kids, what am I gonna instill in them, and then what would I want them to feel? Man, I was my head was spinning. I was thinking about all of this stuff that I never thought about before. I never thought about legacy from, like, of course you, maybe some people think about like, oh, when I die XYZ, but I also started thinking about legacy in terms of like this humanity way of like just how we treat people and family and each other, and what do you mean to other people. That was another thing that was like, oh man, I never thought about what I meant to other people, good or bad, or even out of the aspect of good or bad, just like what's that legacy, what's that connections, how to you know uh funerals are weird dog. They make you like, what are people gonna say? What's the angle, you know? So suddenly I was thinking about how I've made people feel. Yeah, that was really, really interesting. And it was like this wild feeling of like feeling like everything was stable, like I was kind of living and moving in this stable life, and then, you know, I get this phone call, and then it's like my whole world just like this, like it completely flipped upside down just from the perspective of identity. Like I felt like, oh man, I know who I am. I know my likes, my dislike, what I want to do. And then I get that phone call that my pops died, and suddenly I was like, oh, I don't know nothing. Who am I? It was just like, yeah, that was like the weirdest thing. That's what like threw me off. And I felt like, oh, and then you get this phone call, and then it's like suddenly I'm like, I'm just a boy. Girls, that's the thing on the internet, right? Girls like, I'm just a girl. I was like, oh, I'm just a little boy. What does anything, And that was my pops, who I didn't have like a close relationship. Bruh, if it was my mother, oh, I can't even imagine if I would even be like even do anything. Whenever I talk to people and they just talk about their mom dying, I'll be like, how are you even talking? How are you even functioning? Like, how do you even get over that? Like I can't even try to, for a hypothesis, a hypothetical sake, put myself in the shoes of, you know, you guys out there who have lost your mom. I was feeling all this about someone I wasn't even close with and examining myself or whatever. But imagine, like, yo, if it was my mom, I'd probably be, I don't even know, you know. But has anybody else, have y'all like felt like this legacy, this identity, this kind of like primal genetic shift? If you've experienced that, holla at me in the comments, man. I just was curious about that, so I wanted to put this out, and it was another, too much to type. I ain't about to tweet and thread about that. It is way too much. But I figured I would come on here and just you know maybe have a dialogue about that. Has anybody else felt that? Are there people who also didn't have like a great relationship or a close relationship with a parent that died? Is there people out there who didn't even know their dad or their mom, and then you find out that they passed, and there's this weird genetic kind of like re-examining of yourself? I don't know. Thank y'all for rocking with me though. Too much to type.